Never gonna dance. Guilty feet have no rhythm. Easy to pretend. Review. So one day, a horse walks into a bar, and the bartender, well, he immediately calls animal control because of the potential threat to the customers. Well, got that out of my system. On to today's topic. Now, I wonder how many of you watching actually know of this title. Now, this game introduced me to a whole new genre and was one of my first gaming loves in the PS1 era. Now, even though I was still pretty young when I was exposed to this game, I've been hooked ever since I laid my eyes and my ears on this wonder. So, without further ado, bust a groove. Once upon a time, there was a Japanese company by the name of Enix. No, not Square Enix. This was before its merge with Squaresoft. The company Enix gave birth to some well-known titles today, ranging from Star Ocean, Dragon Quest, and Grandia. Among the company's catalog of games was Bust-A-Move for the PlayStation, released in 1998, or Bust-A-Groove for the North American distributions because of conflicts with an already existing puzzle series called Bust-A-Move, or Puzzle Bobble in Japan and Europe. By far, probably one of the most nonsensical and misleading name changes for a game. I mean, come on. It's not like these cute little dinosaurs are gonna bust out into the cha-cha anytime soon. Gameplay can be comparable to the likes of Dance Dance Revolution or Parappa the Rapper. Though despite being themed around dance and music, the similarities kind of end there. You can select from a colorful cast of characters with varying styles and designs, dance in stages that can change throughout a round depending on your performance, and enjoy a wide array of tracks from the game. Nothing that special here so far until you realize that these characters were developed with some damn good motion capture. We're talking about some fluid and well executed dance moves with smoothness only limited by gameplay restrictions. Definitely one of the main takeaways of the game and one of the best uses of mocap I've seen used in the game during that time. As for the roster, we have an Italian Japanophile disco enthusiast, a convicted felon, a street racing burn victim, a hipster artist, a minimum wage worker, a robot, twin aliens, a neglected child of success, a questionable medium, a mad scientist, a TV star, and... oh jeez, what the hell is this? I honestly have no idea why they thought that this was a good idea. I mean, yes, she is an office worker, she likes costumes on the side, but why a baby costume? It just reminds me of a CSI episode I saw with the crew finding out about a man's weird baby fetish. It's just weird. Well, at least her theme song isn't that bad. On to the basics. During matches, there are quite a few things you can pay attention to. The most important aspect is the input bar. You're presented with a bar containing arrows representing what directional inputs need to be performed on the D-pad, and another section of the bar that shows you what button you need to press to execute the sequence. All that is done along a simple 4-count beat. Directional inputs are performed in the exact same sequence shown within the first 3 counts, and the 4th count would be finished off with whatever button is indicated at the end. If done correctly, the character you have chosen will perform a dance sequence associated with that button input. Seems easy enough, right? To score the most points, the key is to maintain successful inputs of high-scoring dance sequences. At first, this might be a bit daunting for new players when songs progress farther. As the song progresses, and if you've been inputting dance sequences successfully one after the next, the difficulty will get notably higher. On the other hand, people who have played longer might find the process monotonous. It really depends on how invested you are with any particular character and how familiar you are with the stages and songs. As you bust out more completed combo chains, the chains become more difficult, signified by the combo number to labels like cool, chillin', and freeze. In addition to the regular combo strings, there are also solo combo sessions where you alternate with your opponent to input 2 or 4 sequence commands depending on the stage. Oh, and in these solo sessions, each character has access to a hidden move sequence other than the ones shown to you, which provide extra points. As you outdance your opponents, you notice the camera slowly focusing more on your character to the point where your opponent is out of the camera's view. So if you see your character on the screen, it's a sure sign you're hidden points. If you performed really well during a round, your character breaks out into a fever time at the end of a match. Essentially, it's an extra victory dance session performed by the AI to a quick funky beat to showcase how well you've done. But that's not all, folks. In addition to the basic gameplay mechanics, you're also able to disrupt an opponent's groove temporarily with a jammer attack. Instead of inputting circle or X when the 4th beat comes around, pressing triangle will unleash a character-themed jammer that can prevent the opponent from executing moves for a couple of sequences if it hits. Sometimes if you manage to pull off all your jammers successfully with certain characters, your opponent might suffer from some physical deformations. It doesn't really affect the gameplay, so it's a nice little quirk. With the ability to attack, there's also the ability to dodge attacks. The player being attacked can avoid it with a somersault to dodge the attack after it was thrown. Dodging simply uses the square button on the 4th beat to execute. Of course, you can't just throw out jammers willy-nilly, and dodging wastes a turn. You're also limited to 2 jammers around, so properly timed and planned usage is key to ensuring an advantage. A good strategy would be to use a jammer before an opponent solos or before they are able to finish a big combo. Granted, using jammers against a human opponent is a bit more difficult as they are easily telegraphed. Now that we covered the basics, let's cover some game modes. In terms of game modes, there's the single player mode, multiplayer mode, practice mode, and the dance viewer. Let's begin with the single player mode as it's the most straightforward. In terms of a story, this is what the developers came up with. All the dancers of the roster house within them the dance energy Groovetron, a mysterious jive power from outer space. Your goal is to become the #1 dancer in the universe and bust a move. No, I did not make any of that up. Doesn't explain what Groovetron is, doesn't explain why it exists, or why the characters do what they do. Not even the booklet has answers, even under what is Bust a Groove. But hey, it's a dance game of quirky characters. I'll take it. After you select a character, you're set up against a gauntlet of 12 rounds. You have to go against the original 10 dancers on the roster, an unlockable alien duo known as Capoeira on stage 6, and then against a giant Vogue dancing mechanical titan known as Robo-Z on the last stage. Though not necessarily a key component of the game, its typical function is to unlock characters and an extra mode. But I'd be damned if I told you I didn't try to unlock Capoeira and Robo-Z as soon as I could. I mean really, an alien that dances with a Brazilian martial arts and a badass looking robot were just too cool to pass up. After completing single player mode, you are granted access to a pretty short ending scene relative to your character. The ending movies are pretty short, sweet, and to the point, while granting a quick look into the lives of the dancers. And when I say short, I mean short, like what happened dumbfounded kind of short. Personally, I found the single player quite tedious over time. You kinda get sick of having to complete the same mode over and over again, I mean at least 5 times to unlock the characters. However, apparently there is a level skip function that I never knew about, so there's also that. Maybe I could have saved myself some time and spared myself from having to go through at least 60 stages worth of battles. Maybe I'm just dumb. A big dummy. Now, 2-player mode was always the go-to option when you had someone else to play with. You can choose any 2 characters on any stage, barring Robo-Z's stage, which was always a disappointment. But other than that, it serves as your main multiplayer option. Aside from the main gameplay modes, there's also the practice mode, which allows you to learn combo strings for your favorite characters and learn the speed and length of each song relative to the beats. It's definitely a good option for newer players to get a hang of things. Though for me, I found it better to just jump straight into the immersive experience of getting my ass kicked. Though honestly, the game's not that hard. There's also the dance viewer, that allows you access to a character viewer-like mode where you can customize combos using any of the individual move sequences of a character. Perfect for learning purposes or simply for laughs. Perhaps for stuff like this. However, to access a dance viewer for any character, you have to use them to beat single player mode to unlock their specific viewer. It's a good thing it's entirely optional and doesn't take away from the core gameplay, because honestly I got sick of the single player after going through it 4 times just to unlock the characters, so in the end you're not really missing out on anything. Now, despite my adoration for this game, there are quite a few flaws that actually make the game quite stale over time. One major critique I have to point out is that potentially matches could end in draws if you and your opponent are of relatively equal skill level. There's no strictness in the timing of the button presses. The leniency of inputs means the difficulty really only comes from just getting them in on time. Usually, messing up the directional inputs can throw you off into a lower scoring move branch. Say if you intended on inputting up down up, but only put in down up. The latter move would be performed if it exists on the move list. Pressing up down up when you intended for up down could also lead you to another unintended path. You don't really have any incentive to perform dance sequences that score lower. So in the end, it just becomes a contest of who can break out the same high scoring combos over and over and over again. I mean, you could go down the lower scoring combo route, but why would you? It's a false binary that gives you the illusion of choice. Unless one player gets some sort of advantage via successful jammer, knowledge of hidden solo moves, or just screws up points accumulated for both players are going to be pretty much identical by the end. I mean, if you wanted to, you could bust out cool looking combinations without repeating the same string 7 times, but that sorta defeats the purpose of a competition based game. For example, if you had to drive a nail into a wooden board and all you had was a hammer or a wrench at your disposal, you'd most likely go for the hammer. Props and style points if you go for the wrench, but the more efficient result will typically win out. Another thing, there are quite a few moments in gameplay where you simply aren't allowed to finish a freeze combo. These moments occur prior to a solo or end of a song. If you attempt to finish your combo string during these moments, your character simply stumbles as if you failed the input. This interrupts the flow and feel of your character's performance and is quite disappointing when the whole purpose of the game is to bust out moves. Though a momentary distraction, I feel that it's a glaring problem that takes away from the enjoyment of the game. So much so that I typically throw out a somersault before this happens, since it doesn't cost anything to do so while still feeling mildly smoother in comparison. Another qualm I have is the inclusion of hidden solo moves. It's an unfair advantage against people who don't know about the moves. Even if players are of equal skill, knowing about the hidden combos grants enough points to move you ahead. The inputs for these combos aren't even difficult. If anything, I find it highly unnecessary. Aside from a few changes from the Japanese version to the English version, like lyrical edits and complete translation overhauls of songs, the gameplay is still pretty much intact. The music is still enjoyable and one of the best parts of the game. The dancing is entertaining and the game is fun overall. But can it be improved? Well, that's where Buster Group 2 comes in. But before all that, let's sample some tracks that I've been praising oh so much. Afro Zen, you're up. Yo, nan no yo da. I'm gonna need your help on the next segment. ごめんね。今ちょっと忙しいんだ。後ではどう？おほー、5000円か。新しいシャツ買えるな。はいはい、かしこまりました。じゃあ画面の前の皆さん、行くぜ。ZenMasterWu。今回は俺の気になる5曲を選んだぜ。一緒に聴いてみないか。ストライクのクールとヒップなテーマが曲のタイトルみたいに力があるね。いいぞこの激しいテンポ。やっぱりタイトルの通りだ。魂に飛び込む気持ちになれるぜ。科学的なテーマにする曲だ。思うよりノリノリになれるな。ヒロ君のナーシズムがこんなにファンキーなんていいね。このゲームの名曲にも呼ばれさ。聞いたか？歌の言う通りに逃げずにバスアウー。Alright, guess it's my turn. Here's a preview of some tracks from Buster Group 2. Need a light-hearted dance track? Then Happy Heart in the Sunshine is for you. Its innocent, upbeat, and 90s Japanese atmosphere. Tired of listening to Thriller being overplayed during the spookier times of the year? Of course not. But here we have another intense track drawing inspiration from modern interpretations of raw horror for your listening pleasure. A fast-paced rhythm, a stage with a ton of visuals, and a toe-tapping beat. Don't be surprised if you feel yourself bobbing up and down to this song and have your senses filled with wonder. Some more good old disco to feed that old school craving. Disco might be dead, but gotta admit that this one track makes you feel real good. A smooth lyrical flow and fresh beats for the fiery breakdancing poster boy heat. Let this track inspire your inner dancer and get you bust a groove. Now, like I mentioned before, I do like Bust a Groove, but it has its flaws. But don't fret, that's where Bust a Groove 2 comes in. Overall, Bust a Groove 2 is generally similar in most aspects when compared with the previous title. Nothing all too drastic in terms of gameplay, but different enough to change it considerably. In terms of basic menu and stage design, everything is much more vibrant and colorful, more welcoming than Bust a Groove 1. Despite having a simplistic yet fun gameplay system, the way it was implemented in the first title made it so that every match you had could potentially end up the same every time. In Bust a Groove 2, inputs and point management have become more skill dependent with the inclusion of stricter timing and the removal of branching dance sequences being available to you outright. Instead of just being able to break out a full 8-string freeze combo right from the get-go, you have to earn access to larger combo sequences by actually performing well. At first, you're limited to a 4-string combo if done generally well, but you can expand on that combo through precise button inputs on every 4th beat. You can potentially start out with a longer combo string, so instead of busting out a 4-string combo, you might be able to bust out a 5-string combo if your execution is spot on. How well you perform also affects the stage by changing visuals, camera angles, and activating events. This creates a much more dynamic environment that definitely makes things much more interesting during matches. Things like sets crashing, explosions booming, and inanimate objects becoming quite animated aren't just for aesthetic, but can also add to the challenge by testing your attention span. And with all the face buttons used for dance inputs, jammers and dodging are relegated to the R1 and R2 buttons respectively. On easy mode though, the X button can be used to attack instead. You can also now perform reversals if you perform an attack command in response with a perfect 4th beat input instead of dodging. Granted, it is incredibly difficult to pull off, but if done correctly it'll send back the attack without using up a jammer stock. Apparently you can also reverse a reversal, and reverse that reversal, and so on and so forth, but I have yet to even pull off a basic reversal myself. Honestly, I couldn't even replicate it for you guys in a controlled environment. I can't even find any proper footage. I know it's possible, but, you know, maybe I'm just bad at what I'm doing. Ah well. The single player is changed up a bit as well. In terms of background info, doesn't seem to be any trace of a general story. I mean, we still got some returning characters along with a MILF chasing 13-year-old, a waitress magical girl, a zombie in naval attire, along with some unlockable clone characters relevant to the individual stories of other characters. Oh, and Kelly got a better design. Good for Enix. Though lacking in a story, they did build upon the history of these characters in the booklet with intents and goals. A nice little addition, I feel. As for the actual single player mode, there's a new display screen to show you your progress as you complete 8 stages as opposed to 12 stages in Bust a Groove 1. Depending on how well you do, you'll go higher on the chart if you do well, or end up lower on the chart if your performance is poor. On the last stage, you go against the giant Robo-Z like the last time, except this time, he's gold and busted up with a whole military bombarding the crap out of him as you dance around in a helicopter. What? You don't believe me? Why would I lie to you? See, what'd I tell ya? Who knew they could make dance battles even more intense? So don't doubt me on this stuff. And if you do really well, you'll make your way to the hidden 9th stage against Pander. Oh my god, he's so cute. What the fuck? So you take out a golden titan to only be welcomed by a half-naked man of questionable background, parading as a panda, and what I can only assume is the equivalent of an acid trip. Oddly enough though, I find this all quite awesome as it's something new and unexpected. The stage is actually quite fun, fast-paced, and challenging, so all this is a plus in my book. Even though for most of you it might be nightmare fuel. Like the previous installments, single player serves the purpose of unlocking characters and usage of the dance viewer for specific characters. Compared to Busted Groove 1, the roster size is slightly larger where it had 14 previously and 18 in this one. Hooray for variety! Even though 6 of the 8 hidden characters are clones of already existing characters. Now unfortunately, depending on whether you have the Japanese version or Western versions of Busted Groove 2, quite a bit of content has been cut from the game. In the Japanese version, the original 10 characters on the roster each had their own specific ending sequences after completing the single player mode. Each ending played out like a TV talk show segment called Dancing Heroes, hosted by
James Tsuneoka!
Look familiar? Each ending typically involves James Tsuneoka opening with a short comedic bit that falls flat, a quick overview of a character's history, a solo dance session with said character as credits roll, and a closing bit to end off with the character saying goodbye. In comparison with the last game, I found these ending sequences to be much more livelier, more informational, and definitely a step up. But for some reason, the Western versions completely removed them from the game. So instead of a cheering audience and a quirky host, you get the same stage platform in a depressingly dark and empty room. After knowing of the original endings, going through single player and reaching the end was extremely disappointing. What's interesting is the fact that all endings were done entirely in English, with Japanese subtitles. It's baffling to think that there was so much work done only to be removed. Now, I've seen some people claim that they were taken out due to having inappropriate or offensive jokes, but after looking through them, I'd say they're rather tame. I mean, sure, some jokes like this might be a little dark.
What do you need to get the Beatles back together again? 3 more bullets. Well, thanks for the warm welcome.
But I don't think anything presented necessitated complete removal. But hey, what's done is done. Still extremely disappointing though. Though besides the single player mode, 2-player mode, practice mode, and the dance viewer are still pretty much exactly the same. Overall, I'd have to say Busted Groove 2 was a definite improvement from the first game. Now, this is the segment where I make my recommendations. What's my criteria? Well, simply put, I'll recommend it if it's an enjoyable experience overall. A smooth cruise, so to say. But it's not like I'm telling you to go out and buy it or anything. I'm just saying if you come across it, give it a shot. So, what's my verdict? Yes, I do recommend it. Now, I'm not saying it has aged well in terms of appearance, but I still think it holds up. For a rhythm game, its music, presentation, gameplay, mocap, it all works really well together. They were a gateway into appreciating the different artfully produced visual and audio aesthetics of games I've played later on. In this case, music. I found joy in noticing many aspects of what you might consider to be small things. From atmosphere pieces to presentation. I learned that properly placed pieces can make a world of difference in shaping the vision of how a game could be presented. If you're finding yourself wanting a rhythmic and musical gaming experience with non-stop involvement, but without too much physical exertion, then these might be the games for you. So, with those closing words, we're done for today. Until next time, we'll see you again on Dancing Heroes. Wait, that's not our show. If you managed to make it this far, then thanks for watching my video in full. This one definitely took me a while to get done, but hey, look at me now. Future videos probably won't be this long unless it needs to be, so you can be relieved. If you want to see more, leave a comment, say hi, subscribe, like, hug your parents, whatever makes you happy. Stay tuned until the end for an extra scene.
やっと終わったぜ。帰ろっか。なんだ